Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin with chapter 25, verse 34. So Yaakov is making lentils. Esav comes home from a tiring day at the field, and he asks Yaakov what he's got there, and Yaakov says he's got some lentils, and basically they make a deal that Esav will get Yaakov's lentils in exchange for Esav's birthright. Now, verse 34. I just want to say, whatever else they say about us Jews, we are smart. Okay, so verse 34, Yaakov nasan le'esav. Yaakov gave to Esav lechem unezid adoshim, bread and these lentils. Vayocha vayesh, he ate and he drank. Vayakam vayelach, and he got up and went. Vayivez Esav v'sabchora, and Esav derided the birthright. So it's just an interesting ending of the story. I mean, presumably we know whatever we need to know without that final phrase that Esav derided the birthright. What exactly is going on over there? So let's just see Rashi. Rashi first on Pasuk Lamed Dalet. Vayivaz Esav, Heira Kasuv al Risho. The Pasuk is testifying to the wickedness of Esav. Shebiza avodaso shomakom, that he disgraced the service of God. In other words, Esav says, I should have started with this pasuk, excuse me. Esav says, I'm on my way to die, so what do I need this birthright for? What good is it for me? And the way many Mefarshim understand is the birthright, at least in part, means the right to be the standard bearer for the legacy of Avram and Yitzchak moving forward. Maybe it has to do with serving God in some kind of temple setup. But basically, Esav, who cares? I'm in the here and now. I've got food. That's much more important than this birthright down the road. Let's see the Ramban. Ramban on Lamadal, skipping the first line. Avokvar Amar Atam Shebavuro Nos Lamachira, Mipnei Shaya Holich Lamus Batsudu Achayos. The Karav Hushayamus B'chayi Aviv. The Ramban says something else. The Ramban says, what good is it to have a birthright if the son predeceases the father? So he says, I'm on my way to death. So what good is the birthright for me? I have a dangerous lifestyle. I'm out there hunting animals. It's very possible I'll die before our father does. So what good is the birthright for me? The only advantage of the birthright is if one survives one's father. Vayochal vayesh vayakam vayelach vayivas. So it says that he ate and he drank and he got up and he went and he derided the birthright. Ki achar she'achal v'shasa chazar hasada el tzedo. He ate, he drank, and then he went right back out to the field. V'zu sibas pisu yabachora. The fact that he went right back out to the field, vayakam vayelach, and he got up and he went, that is the disgrace of the birthright. Fools are only interested in the here and now and the today, and they don't think about tomorrow. It's really a fascinating statement the Ramban is saying that the pasuk is conveying to us. His decision for who he is and his lifestyle was logical. The Ramban says that's not a disgrace to the birthright. The disgrace to the birthright is when you're faced with this choice that you have the opportunity to change your lifestyle and say, I do want to have a legacy. I want to be part of a legacy. I want to live longer than the senior generation. I want to outlast the senior generation. And to not think about that at all and just get right back, that is a disgrace of the birthright. It's I think it's a fascinating statement, and I think what it speaks to is that when we're faced with remarkable situations and compelling choices that if we think for just a moment, make us think maybe we should do something differently. If we don't, we're disgracing the opportunity. And I think that's relevant in all kinds of aspects of life. Okay, moving on in the Ramban, now he gets into a really interesting question. How much was in Yitzchak's 401k? In other words, Avraham Avinu, not Avram, Esav sits and says, what good is the birthright to me? So before we framed it as something about spirituality and service of God, but of course, on the literal level, we're talking about inheritance of assets. So what is it? Was Yitzchak wealthy? Was Yitzchak poor? What's the story? So the Ramban disagrees strongly with what the Ibn Ezra says. Sha'amar, ki biza b'chora bavur shara she'ein mamon la'aviv. You know what it means that Esav disgraced the birthright? The Ibn Ezra says he looked at his father's assets. He says, there's nothing there anyway. What do I need the birthright for? V'rabim yismo, many ask on this. Ki azav lo Avraham mamon rav. Avram was a very wealthy man. That's part of the bracha that Hashem imparted to Avram for going on the journey. Avram presumably imparted this to Yitzchak. See, Ibn Ezra says people are surprised by my pshat. You never heard of a wealthy person, you never heard of a wealthy person losing his money down the road. It happens. The Ibn Ezra says Yitzchak has an affection for Esav. Why does Yitzchak have an affection for Esav? It says in the pasuk, "Kitzayid befiv," because there was game in his mouth. What does that mean? To this famous medrash, that it means that like Esav trapped Yitzchak with his words. Okay, that's a very interesting medrash. The straightforward meaning of the verse is the game that Esav hunted was in Yitzchak's mouth. V'ilu ha'yalechem rav beveis aviv. If Yitzchak had all kinds of food available, so if he says, first of all, it was this big deal that Asa provided game to his father. Why is that a big deal? Ibn Ezra, because maybe there wasn't much food in the cupboard. And Asa provided this wonderful food. And by the way, think about something else. If there's all this food at home, what's it a big deal that Asa can get some lentils from Yaakov? Let him go home and then see what's in the freezer. So again, obviously you could explain away these things in various ways, but this is the Ibn Ezra's point. Yitzchak wants to give Esav a bracha, so he says, "Go get me food." What? So again, there's a famous idea he wants to give him a mitzvah to do, but on the face of it, it's because he wants food. He wants to be put in a good spirit. So is he wealthy or is he not wealthy? If he's wealthy, he doesn't have any food around. Why wouldn't Yaakov have, good garments? And that his mother didn't give him gold and silver for the path. Why didn't she send to him? Why, Yaakov davens, Hashem, please give me food. When Yaakov goes on his way, please give me food to eat and clothing to wear. Why didn't Rivka take care of Yaakov? Why didn't she send him with a care package? The answer is because they didn't have stuff. There's a pasuk that talks about Yitzchak becoming great, meaning financially, says the Ibn Ezra, maybe that was earlier in his life. Maybe that was before Yaakov has to go on his journey. Foolish people think that a sign of a tzaddik is a person who's wealthy. Eliyahu Navi wasn't wealthy. Why does it bother you that Yitzchak wasn't wealthy? He wasn't wealthy. Another question that people ask: Hashem mamon liYitzchak. Why would God not make Yitzchak wealthy? That's another question. Why would God take things away from Yitzchak? Ula Yodiunu, says the Ibn Ezra. Maybe people can help us understand. Lama chiser or enav. I don't know. Does anybody know why he was blind? Do you understand why he was blind? I don't know why he was blind, says the Ibn Ezra, but this is part of God's world. So I don't understand why he's blind. You don't understand why he's poor. Let's make another list of things. Okay. He says, don't get into the medrash about the angels crying. He says, don't start with that with me. The bottom line is there are things that happen in life. Ve'ein lanu chapes ki amku machshavos Hashem. The plans of God are very deep. Ve'ein koach ba'adam la'avinam, and we don't understand all of the plans of God. So that's a very interesting statement from the Ibn Ezra. Factually speaking, Yitzchak was poor. That's why Esav wasn't excited by his birthright. And interesting proofs and counterproofs from the Ibn Ezra. Says the Ramban, Vani Tama, Mi Iver Eni Sichlo Bazeh. The classic commentators have many fascinating puns on each other. So the Ibn Ezra was just talking about Yitzchak being blind. So the Ramban says, I don't know who blinded the Ibn Ezra's intelligence on this matter. Kine Avram, Hiniach lo Hon Rav. Says the Ramban, Avram left as an inheritance to Yitzchak much wealth. The Avad Osha hu miyad, kodem einyan hazeh, umepnei zeh bizas habachora. Ki davar hazeh hayu b'nu reim, kodem heyos le'esav nashim k'sheisapar hakasav. The achrei chen, chazav v'heshir beretz plishtim maki gedol meod, v'ikanu v'osari plishtim, the achrei chen chazav lo'anyo v'is'aval l'tzeid b'no v'amat amim. So the Ramban says, do you realize, according to Ibn Ezra's timeline, it's up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, that he inherited wealth from Yitzchak, from Avram, and then he lost it. And then it says later on that he became wealthy. And then it says the Ibn Ezra, he must have been poor because he asked Asa for food. So it's up and down and up and down. We have an indicator of Yitzchak's assumed wealth as an inheritance from Avram, presumably. We have an indicator of Yitzchak's wealth later on in Yitzchak's life. Says the Ramban, why in the world would you not assume that Yitzchak was wealthy all the way through? V'od, ki hakasav amar v'hi achrei mos Avraham, v'yivarech Elokim es Yitzchak b'no. It says in the pasuk in last week's parsha that it was after Avram died, Hashem blessed Yitzchak. V'abracha tosefes ba'osher u'b'nechasim u'v'chavod. The bracha is an addition of wealth. It's interesting. We actually we had a shir on Shabbos. Rashi says, the Gemara says that the bracha that Hashem blessed Yitzchak with was a bracha of consolation. Says the Ramban, I think what it means that God blessed Yitzchak is Yitzchak gave him wealth. So again, Ramban says it sounds like Yitzchak became wealthy, and now we're saying he wasn't wealthy. If there's tzaddikim Okay, so Ramban says, look, I get it that righteous people can be poor. I get it, says the Ramban. No problem. God blesses these people. God, Avram, Yitzchak, he tells them you're going to be blessed. Says the Ramban, we read in the Chumash, there are all these kings who come to make covenants with Avram and Yitzchak. Why are they coming to make covenants with Avram and Yitzchak? Why? Says the Ramban, isn't it because these are prominent people? We have that a king comes to Yitzchak and says, we've seen that God is with you. What do they mean when they say we've seen that God is with you, says the Ramban? It must be that they see that Yitzchak is financially successful. So for all these reasons, the Ramban is quite adamant that Yitzchak had been wealthy, was wealthy in the future, and was wealthy at this juncture. And so it's an interesting, we probably will continue with the Ramban next time, but it is just an interesting discussion to peek in on. Okay, now let's just talk about some administrative notes here. First of all, this shir, this 9:30 shir, is not going to meet tomorrow morning. That's statement number one. But God willing, it will resume on Thursday morning. Statement number two, the 12:30 shir is not going to meet today. I hope to be close to the rally by 12:30. Hope so. We'll see what happens, but we're not going to meet today. And the Wednesday morning shir, the 11 o'clock Wednesday morning shir, is also not going to meet tomorrow. The 12:30 shir will meet tomorrow, God willing. So the next year, for all you Zoom attendees, the next year, God willing, is tomorrow at 12:30. Okay? We should all have Besoros Tovos, and everyone should be well. Take care, everybody.
Be safe.
Yeah, for everybody.